Hey everybody, it's JJ here from Bull Boom Bear Bust. It is Friday, November 4th, 2022. Investor businessman Doug Casey is predicting an inflationary economic death spiral. People call me doom and gloom. Billionaire Doug Casey is sounding even more doomish and gloomish than myself, believe it or not. Let's go ahead and get into that story and a lot more economic news. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Help this channel out. I really appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Hey everybody, all right, we're back with another economic forecast. Now, new rule, you're no longer allowed to call me doom and gloom because Doug Casey is making this prediction here. Let's take a look at what he said, and let's bring up an article. Of course, there's really no rules. You can call me whatever you want, and I guarantee whatever you call me, I've been called worse. All right, let's get into the news article here. Now, this took me a little bit by surprise. Doug Casey, how Social Security increases are going to cause an inflationary death spiral. Now, first of all, who is Doug Casey? We're going to talk about that in a minute. But Social Security increases are going to give seniors and people on Social Security so much extra money to spend that that's going to be what's going to trigger this inflationary death spiral, as he puts it. I disagree. But first, let's talk about Doug Casey. Who is he? Well, he is a successful investor, also described here as a speculator. But how did he get his start? Let's take a look here. He is a successful author. He had a book called Crisis Investing back in 1979. So he's been on the crisis tip, for lack of a better term, crisis tip for many decades, putting out a book in 1979 called Crisis Investing. It was a New York Times #1 bestseller. But here's something right here. He is the son of Eugene Casey, a multi-millionaire real estate developer. So that's kind of a trend that we see with a lot of successful people, is they were born into money, right? So it's pretty easy to be a successful investor when you're born with tens of millions of dollars. People that are born to families or parents living paycheck to paycheck, that's not so easy to become successful because you don't have any money to invest. But when you're born to a multi-million-dollar real estate developer, then that kind of helps, doesn't it? Anyways, I'm not putting anything out there negative. I'm not taking anything away from Doug Casey, right? But let's go back and talk about what he said. All right, so he's putting it out there that all this new spending, as he calls it, is going to be about $100 billion because of this large cost of living increase that was put out by Social Security, 8.7% annual increase to how much recipients of this are getting. And this is going to cause that extra spending, thus causing more demand for fewer and fewer goods and supplies and services, therefore causing the inflation to be even worse and trigger this economic inflationary death spiral. Now, here's my 2 cents on the matter. The reason that Social Security had to implement the biggest increase for recipients in the last 40 years is because inflation is already high. So now this, to him, is being put out there as the reason or the blame for even worse inflation down the road. All right, but let's think about this. Is he correct? Well, technically he is. The more money people have to spend, then the worse inflation is going to be. Pretty simple. The more people with money to buy things, that creates demand. And if demand continues to outpace manufacturing, then that's what's going to cause rising prices. Now, he didn't just stop here, though, with this increase to the cost of living for these recipients. This article goes into talk about all the money creation, the fiat system, and how it's just deficit upon deficit upon deficit, bigger and bigger budgets each year. So he does get into the root of the problem that's been going on for many, many decades. But an inflationary death spiral, let's get into that term here for just a minute. What does he mean by that? What's going to happen? Well, let's go right to the summary of this article that lays it out for us and what he's predicting. Social Security is now and always has been a gigantic time bomb. Nobody talks about its bankruptcy, but they should. They say it can be repaired. That's a lie. We're looking at not just the collapse of the financial markets and the economy, but a serious social disturbances and perhaps some radical near revolutionary political changes. When people find out their Social Security check cannot cut it, the natives are going to get very restless. So there you have it, another prediction of restlessness, and sounds like social chaos. And now we have an ex-Fed president out there basically saying that the Fed is not even close to ending increasing interest rate. Now, something that I often find really interesting is how all over the map all of these forecasts are, right? Inflationary death spiral, deflationary collapse, stagflation, and people that have been investing for many years, sometimes decades, sometimes have the opposite conclusions on what's going to happen with the economy. And what I've said here for a long time on this channel is I've said it's going to be a combination of inflation and deflation. Now, here's the thing. Deflation in home prices and car prices, I think that's ahead because of the higher rates that we're seeing. But payments are still more expensive because home prices are not coming down fast enough and hard enough to meet the extra cost of financing a home with the higher mortgage rate. But also when you look at other areas that most people have to pay for, let's talk about gas and oil. Those I don't think are going to come down. I think after this month, I think starting in December, we're going to start to see a lot higher prices in both natural gas, heating oil, and just fuel for your vehicles. And oil prices, I think, are going to go back up. I think diesel fuel is going to continue to go up. And if it runs out, that's when we're going to see a deflationary death spiral. Not inflationary like Doug Casey said, but a deflationary death spiral. Because when diesel runs out, if it runs out, that's going to be a complete freeze up of the entire system. And that's when you will see deflation. So I think it's going to take some sort of catastrophic event to see massive deflation hit across all parts of the economy. If things continue without some sort of massive interruption, like an outage of diesel fuel or some sort of power grid failure or banking system implosion, then I think inflation is going to be the bigger risk to most people. But there will still be some areas that we're going to see deflation. And that's why at the end of the day, cash is going to be king because a couple things. It's going to be really hard to get financing. When home prices do come down more significantly, it's going to be really difficult to get financing. And it's going to be difficult to have a down payment because the cost of a lot of other things that we have to pay for is still very elevated. So I think we're going to continue to see this shift where cash buyers and the ultra wealthy, corporations, investment firms, hedge funds, etc., are going to come in and buy a bulk of the houses. Not all the houses, and maybe not even most of the houses, but I'd put the range between somewhere between 35 and 40% of all sales, when home prices correct even further, are going to be big money waiting on the sidelines. All right, and that's just another reason why you see the mega wealthy continue to get wealthier. One, because the game board, the playing field is tipped or tilted in their favor, but two, they understand the boom and the bust cycles, and they're waiting on the sidelines with lots of cash, waiting for buying opportunities. It's the same concept as Warren Buffett put out many years ago. One of his quotes was something like, "Be greedy when others are fearful." So when you do see deflation and a massive collapse in falling prices, that's when you come in, and that's when you buy, and that's when you're greedy. And that's why patience is key. Look at all the recent home buyers in Boise, Idaho, and there's a recent article about that. Well, Boise, Idaho, according to Zillow, is the first city to see year-over-year price declines. So all these people that bought in the past year are now underwater. I shouldn't say all these people because there were some cash buyers. And if you don't have a loan, then there's nothing to be underwater on. But most of the people that took out mortgages, unless they had a huge down payment, they are underwater. And I say that because most people don't have a huge down payment. Most people just get in with the minimal down payments possible. The next two cities I think that we're going to see year-over-year price declines is going to be Las Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona. Of course, our housing updates, we're going to touch on that. I've got a nice one coming out here. I believe we'll have that coming out on the weekend or early next week, a nice housing market update. So please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. If you like what we talk about, please help us out and give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Really appreciate your help. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Hope everybody's well. Keep stacking, and bye for now. What do you think about Doug Casey, his prediction, inflationary death spiral because of all this extra money in the economy because people getting an increase to their Social Security? We have a lot bigger problems than that, I think. But what do you think about his prediction there and that article? Thanks, everybody, for being here. Bye for now. Peace.